Hello, my name is Laura Kai, and I'm here today to talk about a very serious issue which is happening now in Spain. And this is the resistance to the eviction of the CNT AIT Madrid from their headquarters in Tirso de Molina. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the situation. I want to look at it from a historic perspective, what's actually happening now, and to look at it from an anarchist perspective, not just an anarchist perspective, anarcho-communist perspective, because we at the IWA, we are in the tradition of anarcho-communism and anarcho-syndicalism. And so, of course, the way that we perceive it is going to be from that position. So what's happening right now? Right now, we have a union, which is the CNT AIT, um, which is in Madrid. It is a local federation. Actually, there are several unions inside this federation, and they have been located in the building on Tirso de Molina. It's a square in Madrid uh, for a really long time. And I would say that the first time that I've been there personally was a little more than 40 years ago. So decades and decades, they're at the same place. This, it's not a whole building, but two floors of a building where the offices are, were bought by the membership of the CNT AIT with people's dues and contributions. The CNT AIT Madrid has received a court order eviction. How did it get to that? Who asked for them to be evicted? And what has been the response? Well, as you may or may not know, um, the CNT AIT is the historic organization that is part of the International Workers Association. There is another union which exists in Madrid and other cities in Spain, which is part of the International Confederation of Labor. In Spain, it's known as CEAT, in English, known as ICL. It's a little oversimplified to say that these organizations used to be together and there was a split. It wasn't exactly that easy to say because, of course, part of what was formerly the CNT AIT, combined with the CNTC, um, part of them started to go in a different direction than the traditional anarcho syndicalist direction of the CNT AIT. And it's a very long story about all the different ways that they started breaking with even the statutes of the CNT AIT and how they started to be more hierarchical and professionalized. But needless to say, um, there was tension in that organization. And that started really 15, 20 years ago, maybe even longer. Um, and the local federation in Madrid, which was always, like the big federation in the CNT-AIT with more than 500 people, several unions, um, they were opposed to going in this direction. So people who wanted to go in that direction had been trying to expel them from the CNT for years. There were several attempts. Some of them were based on completely confabulated stories, even. So, of course, these attempts didn't work out. But as things developed, and there was an organization which belongs to the IWA and another organization using the name CNT um, that belongs to the International Confederation of Labor, or CEAT, things started getting really ugly. And eventually, um, you know, CNT AIT um, is in the IWA, CNT AIT Madrid, right? And, when the CNT AIT decided that it wanted to continue um, in the traditions of the Eighth Congress of the CNT, because the Ninth Congress was already, there were quite fishy things. That's another story. Um, the people in the CNT seat, um, they didn't just leave it big. You know, um, there are other CNTs in Spain that they are not suing and trying to destroy. There are individual unions who are outside of both SEAT and AIT. Um, our comrades in Barcelona, they were CNT Catalunya for a very long time, and nobody ever sued them or anything like this. But they started with lawsuits and trying to gain property. And, um, I have read these lawsuits. I have seen them since the first lawsuit was put, and, they were trying to get punitive damages for things like criticizing the CNT seat. I mean, what the fuck? People who are anarchists and critical thinkers are allowed to make critical analyses of what's going on in their own organizations, aren't they? What the fuck? You're supposed to pay like 50,000 euros and 1 euro cent, because that's the amount of money they were asking, because you criticize these people and because you continue using the name CNT, which you've been using for decades and decades. This is crazy. In any case, um, as far as the premises in Tirso de Molina are concerned, as I said, they were bought by the membership of the CNT AIT. Now, a lot of the people some of the people that I met 40 years ago are still in the CNT AIT. Some of them are gone, they're older, they're not with us anymore. New people, people who came, people who went. A minority of these people were on the side of the people who became CNTC, but this was a minority. So the question is, if somebody has been paying for the the place, they paid for it, their members have been paying, they've been maintaining it for years, they don't have any right to it. This is not at all an anarchist approach. I mean, take a look at an anarchist approach. An anarchist approach is that the people who use the space, the people who pay for it, maintain it, have every right to be there. Not like somebody is a tenant someplace and they've been paying, the whole mortgage for the place, while the landlord, for example, all of a sudden decides, hey, I could get more money from somebody else. I'm going to evict these people because I have a paper and my name is on the paper. No, this isn't an anarchist approach. Anarchist approach is the people who actually use the place have a right to stay there as long as they are using it and maintaining it. I mean, is that so hard to understand for a person? If you're watching this, you probably are interested in anarchism. Have you never heard that before? Because I don't know. This seems to be something very basic. Okay, so who knows how this happened? But I suppose that, you know, the state in Spain have wanted to sort of kick down, destroy, I don't know what, repress the CNT AIT for decades because they are not social democrats. They didn't sign Moncloa pacts. They, always were doing something else. So if you're faced with a situation where you have a bunch of people who are still militants, militant anarchists, syndicalists, anarcho-communists, and you have people who are sort of like going in a different direction, who are very legalistic, who comply with all sorts of state laws. I mean, if you're the state, what friggin' side are you going to be on? So, as far as I know, this court case was something insane, unjust. CNT AIT was not allowed to present evidence. You know, what? Something really fishy. So, there was this order, and the order is that CNT AIT Madrid will be evicted, and they were given a month that they're supposed to leave. Sorry. If you are any self-respecting anarchist, you're going to do like that to this order. Because, this is your place. This is your place where you've been operating for decades. Of course, there were other possibilities that could have been done. I mean, let's face it, if you break up, let's say you are in a partnership or a marriage or something with somebody, you have a mutual space. If you have a space, you divide the assets. If you have two spaces, then it's fair, like one person gets one person gets the other. The CNT seat in Madrid has a completely different headquarters. Completely different. They haven't been using Tirso de Molina in years. And, quite frankly, they don't have enough people to maintain that space. So why do they want to take it? Why? Petty, vindictive bullshit. That's what it is. Let's just call it what it is. The space in Tirso de Molina actually has two floors. Another possible outcome could have been they say, all right, one of us is going to be on one floor, one of us are going to be on the other. We'll go our separate ways. We each have our own place. That could have been a reasonable, um, sort of compromise agreement as well. But no. And what has been happening all around Spain with different places where the CNT AIT are? The C as the CNT seat membership has been voting to sell premises in locations where CNT seat don't have a presence. So in other words, if CNT AIT is in some place, are using premises, have ties with the community, have been there for decades, have helped set up and maintain the place for decades, but some court or some piece of paper says, no, it belongs to Seat. The people in Seat want to sell it. They want to monetize it. They prefer that anarcho-syndicalists don't exist in that city. Because for them, if it's not CNT Seat, it has no value. And that is the basis of what was causing so much friction in both the CNT, the former CNT organization when it was mixed, and quite frankly in the IWA, because those people saw absolutely no value in most of the sections of the IWA. because why would we have any value? We're just doing anarcho syndicalism, organizing workers, having strikes, fighting against capitalism. What value are we? Making solidarity for the CNT as well. But, they ask for this all the time and then they see it as no value. So, this is a part of the problem is that these people are claiming everything, but the reality is that a lot of the people who were in the former organization, who are in the CNT AIT now, they worked, they put all sorts of efforts in maintaining these spaces. And now they're being told, you can't stay there. We're going to sell it. We're going to sell it and pay, our lawyers or something like that. So this is ridiculous. This is not consistent with any anarchist things. So the people in Madrid are not going to go. They're going to stay. And what's going to be next? The only way for the people from C to recruit um, these premises is, frankly, with violence. Okay, they've done it before. Look at what happened in Cadiz when they came and they tried to take over premises there, eventually stealing all the local unions' things. I mean, people from the neighborhood just came and drove them out. And, well, I'm sure that there's a lot of anarchists in Madrid who are going to be there defending, right? Um, so they have a few options. Maybe they're going to make a goon squad from their people in seed and go and try to fight it out over the space so they can get it and then probably sell it because they don't have enough people to maintain it. This CNT AIT local federation, it was always a big organization that could maintain this space. Or maybe they might use something called desocupas. And these are like fascist goons who are hired by property owners to get out squatters. Or the riot police. I wouldn't put it past them. I would not put it past these people. So that is more or less in a nutshell the situation that is unfolding now in Madrid. We at the IWA, we give all our solidarity to the comrades in Madrid. We find this situation to be despicable, actually, and really an attack on anarcho syndicalism in Spain from people who are, you know, trying to convince other people that they're anarchists or anarcho syndicalists. Sorry, you do not behave like that if you are, an anarchist in good faith. Unless you're a libertarian or something like that, then maybe, who knows. But, if you are an anarcho communist fighting to build a just society, just think of what we tell people when we tell them, for example, that we don't need the police or we don't need courts. We say we could sit down and we could, what are you talking about? The people in Madrid have said how they tried to negotiate in good faith with these people some sort of other solution. But basically, they were told to fuck off. And I think people really need to think about this because, it's quite disturbing to hear some of the really convoluted sort of justifications for this type of thing. Um, what I mean are people who sort of consider themselves sort of anarchists or libertarian unionists. not from the IWA, uh, but from other places, sort of thinking that yeah, this is normal because maybe a majority want this. What the fuck type of bourgeois bullshit is this? A majority of people wants, I don't know, mass deportations. Are you going to say that this is right because some majority of people voted for this? This is absurd. Okay, so people need to think about this. People need to think like, what is your position on questions like property and the use of the state and so on. Because I hear really insane things from some people. Some people are naive and they think that, oh, you just explain to some people and they'll understand. No, no, it's like, you know, in my opinion, some people just went to the right along with the rest of the society and they're just, I don't know what they're thinking. Anyway, we're going to see how it unfolds. I wanted to say that, of course, I want to do an interview with some comrades from Madrid. I've been meaning to do it for a while, but things are a little crazy. It hasn't really been feasible, but I'll try to do this, get more facts out to people, um, and we'll see how this is going to unfold. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. Bye bye.